and sort of how that can help with the case. So I'm hoping we'll get through the presentations not long after halfway through, so we've got plenty of time for discussion. So I hope we won't overrun too much. We won't take questions at the end as a panel, so write your questions down, store them up. We've also got Slido questions, so if you go onto Slido now, you can start answering them in advance, but we'll pause after certain presentations and just look at, give people a minute if they haven't answered it, and then we'll look at those results. So without further ado, I'll ask Sarah to kick us off with her presentation. Yes, questions? Sorry,
I'm a bit deaf, and I'm not
sure. It's switched on.
Coming out of that mic.
Apparently it's working, but so if we can hold mics very close, do a bit of an oasis, you know, and hopefully and speak loudly, please. Sarah, over to you.
Thanks very much, Nick. Okay, tell me if I speak too fast or not loudly enough.
Sorry, Nick, I don't know if you said, but
Yes.
with your permission, we are recording the presentation, so you also need to stand sort of fairly close to the screen on the side to get you in. Thank you very much.
Great. So, thanks very much, Nick, and it's just an absolute joy to be here today, I have to say. So, my name's Sarah Grimes. I work with Bath and West Community Energy, and I'm going to talk today about the renewable energy model for community energy. So obviously communities get involved in all sorts of aspects of the energy transition, energy saving, behaviour change. I'm going to focus on the really unique model we have around delivering renewable energy today. So next slide please. So this model really came about by asking the what if question. So what if, animation, we successfully, imagine yourself in that wonderful future, that we had successfully transformed the energy system to clean, low-cost, renewable energy. But not only that, we'd actually done it in a way that benefits the area hosting the renewables. So this is different, perhaps. With projects shaped and revenues retained, governed and distributed for social benefit by the communities in that area. So imagine that vision of the future. That is the community energy vision, and go on, move on one. I haven't got animations all the way through, look at this here. That there was a photo of PwC. We're working on that vision every day, as are hundreds of organisations around the country who have a similar model. So we were established in this pub, which you can see shaded out slightly behind there, the Ram in Bath, back in 2010 by people from Transition Corsham and Transition Bath. And the real instigation for it was the feed-in tariff, which some of you will remember, which was for the first time enabled decent revenues from renewable energy. So with those new revenues from the feed-in tariff, we were thinking, okay, how can we use this new revenue? Oh, you go, the asset, that's right. How can we go use that revenue for the clean local energy, community owned for the common good? And we came up with a model that differs from the commercial model in a few key ways. So first of all, it's the crucial factor, if you want to identify what's community energy truly and what isn't, it's in the legal structure of the organisation. So that's, you can go on Companies House and you can see, is it for profit or is it some sort of non-profit organisation? For example, a community benefit society like we are. So community benefit status legally means we have to be local, we're tied to an area. We have to be democratic. So in our case, we have about 1,000 members, and when you become a shareholder, an investor in Bath and West Community Energy or other community energy cooperatives, you automatically become a member. You can do that from £100 on up. But regardless of how much money you spend on our shares, you still get one vote. So it's democratic. And so most of those members are local, we just promote it really heavily in our local area, and that's local people getting that vote, regardless of how much money they put in. We're also not for profit, so that basically, in practical terms, what that means for us is that we've got these solar panels out there in various places, I'll talk about that in a bit, and we say to the shareholders when they're going to invest in BWCE, we say, right, we're going to target a 5% return for you, and so at the moment it's 5%. And we hope you achieve that. If the sun shines, we'll pay you that 5%, but if the sun shines even more and we make even more money, sorry, we're not going to pay you more than 5%. So we cap the amount of money that goes back to our shareholders. And that means that anything over that 5% goes into community benefit. So that might either be reinvesting in BWCE so we can do more, or notably that goes into our community fund for local community projects. So we also, second part of the non-profit legal requirement is the asset lock. So this means that we own millions of pounds worth now of renewable energy equipment, which is exciting. But what happens if we wind BWC up, sell them all, and then run off to the Bahamas? Well, the asset lock would stop us from doing that. So what that means is if we decide to stop being BWC and wind it up and do something else, we have to hand our assets over to another organisation that has a similar mission and an asset lock. And they are asset locked, so if they can't sell it and get rich either, they've got to send it on to someone else. So it keeps those assets delivering community benefit for their lifetime. Okay, so that's really important. I know it's a little bit technical and a bit legal, but it's important to understand this because what we hear is we hear the terms community benefit bandied around a lot. And it's true, you know, commercial developers who are for profit often do provide a community fund from their renewables, which is great, fair play. They also might do other good things for the community, but they're not legally bound in the same way that an organisation set up like Bath West Community Energy or our colleague non-profit organisations around the country are. You know, we're legally required to do this stuff, which holds our feet to the fire. And so that's really important to understand. You know, what it means in practice is because those revenues are capped going back to the shareholders, a lot more of the money from community renewables goes back to the community benefit, up to 20 times more than what you get from a private developer. Just because they're set up to make profit. You know, they are a for-profit company, fair enough. No complaints with that. And we're not profit in the way I've described. So I hope that wasn't too technical. Next slide, please. This is our area. So as I've said, we aren't trying to take over the world. You know, people are like, well, why don't you just expand just a little bit? And we say, no. We're a community organisation, you know, and then I'll talk a bit more about the geography and importance, but it's just Baines, a bit of South Gloss, and the area board areas of Corsham, Wratham, Navan and Trowbridge in Wiltshire, and that's where we're going to stay. Next slide, please. So since 2010, it's been good. We've been very fortunate and done quite well, I think. We're one of the larger community energy cooperatives in the country. We have raised 25 million, that's a combination of the share offers that I talked about. We've also had some bank finance and some bond offers, so we've been raising money in different ways to build enough renewables to power the equivalent of 5,000 homes now. We've built up our staff team to 30 now, taking on new projects. We've got a nice portfolio of ground-mounted schemes and 37 rooftop solar schemes, mostly on schools, some of which are very local to here. One water wheel, there it is. Quite hard work, a water wheel, just saying. We've got a big pipeline of 45 megawatts, so we're at 14 megawatt at the moment. We've got a pipeline of 45, including wind turbines and a shared ownership scheme, which is where we get a slice of a commercial scheme, which Nick will talk more about. We're exploring supplying power to local people because what we really feel is the ultimate realisation of community benefit would be to get cheaper bills if you're right next to a solar farm. That just intuitively makes sense. And so we're looking at models to do that right now on all of our schemes if we can, and the regulations have changed. I'll boringly waffle on about that if anyone asks the question later. But yeah, we want to be able to do that, and there's ways now it's looking like it might open up to be able to do that. And we've launched a home energy advice programme. This is what I mostly work on, so I'll stop there, but just so you know, we have an expert home energy advice service as well. We were able to float that on the success of our renewable energy portfolio, giving us a bit of money to work with, because that's a little harder to make work financially, but really important to reduce energy demand. Next slide, please. 7 minutes, okay. So when we talk about community benefit, a lot of what we need is our community fund. So since 2010, when we got started, we've had £430,000 go into our community fund, and it's really important to us that this is a separate organisation, so it's not us as BWC deciding where we spend that money. We've actually got a separate charity set up with its own board, and this stops conflicts of interest, and they decide which projects to fund. And so far we've made precisely 111 grants to local projects, and they all address climate change or fuel poverty, but it's a really wide range of things, anything from community growing through to kind of providing people during the energy crisis with electric blankets and air fryers and things. We've done Climate Friendly Bradford, Cycle Chippenham, and applications open in November, so if you want a community grant and you're in our area, definitely get in touch and apply. Next slide, please. So a little bit more on how we actually install renewables. So our model for rooftops is fairly simple. We just simply rent the roof space above a school or a community building for a peppercorn. We pay for the solar panels to go up there. We then operate them and pay to look after them. And the way we make back our money is by selling the money to the building owner or the building user. And that provides us more money than we can make selling that power to the grid. We sell the power at a discount, and also we have a cap of how much we'll charge for it. So we don't want it just to be linked to the big six, and then during the energy crisis, the big six prices go through the roof. We cap that price, and that saves schools thousands of pounds during the energy crisis because their solar price was capped. And if you're thinking about, I know a good rooftop, here are a couple of criteria. So obviously it needs to be sunny, it needs to be a sound roof, it needs to be large enough, probably around that size is about what we're looking at. But also, because we have, for it to stack up for us, we need to be able to sell a lot of the power to the building user. It does need to have someone in there during the day using power while the sun shines. That's quite crucial to making it stack up. So yeah, that's what it needs. Next slide, please. So, we also do ground-mounted solar, coming to the end here. This is one of our solar schemes. We do it in a special sort of community way where we do a deep level of community engagement. We work with local groups. In this case, we've worked with Zero Carbon Compton, Dando. And it's just got the planning. And you'll see here that we actually moved the solar panels because the community didn't, there's a few points that they wanted to keep them away from. We also put in a footpath so people can keep walking their dogs. This is a community orchard, these dots that people wanted. And you'll see we actually haven't used that much of the site. And so because we're an environmental, we've got our mission is the environment, we want to make sure these are nature reserves as well. And so we're planting these shrubs and things around it. And our Wilmington site, which has been operating for about 10 years, has had a 60% improvement in biodiversity. Woo! So we absolutely think these two things should go hand in hand. Next slide, please. So we've had a few advantages, to be fair, in being able to do what we've done so far. First of all is that feed-in tariff and funding at the early stages, which really helped. Secondly is a partnership with our local authority. So in Bath and North East Somerset, we have a formal cooperation agreement with them, but they provided us with the schools, helped us to connect with the schools to get our first schemes going, and have helped us in other ways. And then coming back to our geography, this is quite important. We need to be in a large enough area that we can have enough projects to get enough revenue coming in to be able to pay for the staff who then build up the organisation and provide a sustainable income. But we don't want to be so big that we lose that connection to the community. So we feel like we've gotten it pretty okay, the size of the area that we cover. But we do also work with a lot of smaller community energy groups and so forth too, which we can talk about. And partner obviously with Wiltshire groups too. We've also focused on the easier projects first. So schools were probably the easiest project. We focused on that, but there's also there's good opportunities for shared ownership as well, which Nick is going to talk about next, and that could be a great place to start. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was really good. Gives everybody a good understanding of what community energy is all about. We're going to do a quick Slido question, so if you haven't answered it yet, I'll give you 30 seconds or so to look at it, which is asking what kinds of community energy initiatives are you aware of in your area? We just wanted to get a sense of what you're doing, and it extends beyond community energy to doing energy projects as groups. So can we put the results of that up as it's coming through? And we'll go to the next.
I can do the presentation isn't so I could do it afterwards, if that's all right.
At the end of we'll do it all together at the end then. So that was the first question. If you haven't answered that, please go on slide and answer that. So I'm going to talk about Cllr North Wiltshire very quickly. I chair Cllr North Wiltshire. I'm also joined by Alex, who is a co-founder and a director as well, and he'll be on the panel to answer questions. And I'm going to whiz through it, but anybody who's interested in what we're doing can come and approach us afterwards. So next slide, please. So we pretty much covered this, so I'm going to skip that one in the interest of time. With community energy, Sarah did a really good job on that. Move to the next one. This just sort of covers the benefits. This is from Community Energy, and they're going to, why do community energy? It keeps the money circulating locally. It adds to local climate projects, and it has all these other benefits in terms of educating, demonstrating to communities, tackling climate change by bringing additional capital in. Next slide, please. This is an annual survey done by Community Energy England. The 2024 one's just about to come out, 25, which reflects on 24. So just show the scale of the returns that we get through community energy, which is really significant and growing. And we're hoping that the supportive policies that this government is bringing through will make it even better, and our collaboration with Wiltshire Council. Next slide, please. So Zero North Wiltshire came out of Zero Chippenham. Zero Chippenham is a climate action group focused on tackling climate change, and we've got various energy things going on within the organisation already. So we have a community solar discount scheme, we have energy efficiency workshops, thermal imaging camera loans. We've done tree projects in the past, and we do a lot of community engagement. And Zero Chippenham was really waiting for an opportunity to move into community energy, but as Sarah's kind of explained, there's a certain amount of scale involved in doing it, and I'll just sort of add to that you know, every group probably can't do community energy, and it makes much more sense if the groups link in with the bigger initiatives so that they can contribute to those. Next slide, please. So Zero North Wiltshire, we emerged out of Zero Chippenham, founded in 2023 as a community benefit society with an asset lock, which is exactly what Sarah's been talking about. So it ensures that the money is recirculated and kept in the and used in the public interest. Our first project, which we're building up to now, is a community sharing a ground-mounted solar scheme, and that's at Forest Gate near Chippenham. We've got a couple of school rooftop schemes and other projects in the pipeline. We're working in partnership with Bath and West Community Energy for the very simple reason that we're fledgling, and there is no point reinventing the wheel. They have a lot of the contractors in place and the experience, so we've brought them on board, and it's been absolutely valuable. They've acted as a mentor towards us, and very happy for us to be working in our area, adjacent to our area. We've already got £100,000 from the Community Energy Fund, which might sound a lot of money, but it's very quickly used. You know, on legal and financial modelling, etc., that you need to do, because you need to have things properly in place and tight with these sorts of projects. We've also got FICO from Wiltshire Council, which I should acknowledge, which is helping us on the capital side of investing in equipment and our website, which again is so important to us, because we need to engage and build up to a share offer. And we'd like to engage with community groups in North Wiltshire in particular, as affiliates so that they feel they've got some ownership in what we're doing. So if you're from a group in North Wiltshire, please come and talk to us, and we'll explain how you can get involved. Next slide, please. This is just some facts about the project I mentioned. So it's an almost 50 megawatts of generation, temporary use of land for 40 years, planning consent in 2023. The land was, I think, 3B, mostly Sophy, isn't it? So not massively important agricultural land. It's got a new public pathway as an additional benefit coming through. Wildflower, good biodiversity net gain, and our section of the split site could be even improved further. There's a buffer zone with tree planting, and shared community ownership for 20%. So 10 megawatts of that 50 would come to the community side, which gives us a great potential for a big community benefit fund in our area going forward. Next one, please. There are quite a few things on the web, and you can, if you Google case studies Forest Gate, you will see more detail of the project and the benefits that are going to be created. Next one, please. So yeah, next steps for us. We're preparing our community share offer, or we're working towards building up the engagement to prepare for that share offer, which will be next year. We're growing our membership, so if you can leave your contact details with us, and we can get in touch and tell you when things are progressing, developing our branding, developing our capacity, including board membership. So if people are interested in joining us on the board, potentially, you can come and talk to us as well. Securing funding for future projects, and making sure that other opportunities that come through, and there are some quite substantial ones, that we can get a look in on those. And in order to become a sustainable organisation, so that we're ensured that we've got enough money generating that we can employ somebody and grow into a much bigger organisation that will sustain. And we're looking for new opportunities, which is where the local groups come in. We really need to know where those viable projects are that we can help with, and that includes schools. Despite feed-in tariffs and everything that's happened in the past, not all schools have necessarily got up to speed. So there are opportunities on rooftops, which has got to be the primary focus. Yeah, as I say, engaging and wanting to affiliate. So if you come and talk to us at the end of the session, we'll be around. but I'm going to move on to the next talk in the interest of time. So that's great. Thank you. We have Sophy Fearnley-Whittingstall who's going to talk about engaging with community stakeholders. Got great experience in doing that around the UK.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And oh, you have to have it really close down. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see some familiar faces here today. I've been doing this since 2013, and this is an example of some of the community energy groups I've worked with over the years. I've contributed to the government's best practice guidance on community engagement for onshore wind in England, and also contributed to the Solar Energy UK best practice guidance for solar farms. So I'm going to pass on very few tips, things that I've learned over the years. Hopefully they'll be useful. Can we have the next slide, please? So this comes from the Regen document, which Nick actually just shared a slide from that in the last presentation. This was very recently published, and it's a great summary of things to think about if you're engaging with local communities in renewable energy. We had some great tips this morning from Jen Gale, but when you're dealing with renewable energy projects, it's quite specialised, and you have to have a slightly different focus. The first tip is to engage early with your local residents, but not too early, because if you haven't got a viable project, then there's no point getting people excited about it. It takes usually quite a few years for any renewable energy project, ground mount solar or a wind turbine, to come to fruition. And the same thing goes for if you have lots of volunteers. Volunteer fatigue can happen quite early. You don't want to have people getting too excited if nothing's going to happen for a couple of years. I think it's fairly obvious that we need to be open and answer everybody's questions truthfully. Don't be afraid of the benefits of a solar farm or a wind turbine, but also don't be afraid to talk about the impacts, because these things always have impacts. Change in the countryside is quite a challenging thing sometimes to promote. We talked earlier about inclusivity, and again, looking at the people in this room, it's exactly the audience I would expect to see at an event like this. So that's great, but let's try and reach some other demographics, especially some younger people, because they understand the mysteries of TikTok. And then collaboration is important. I always try and find a local community energy group if I'm working with a commercial developer, because they already understand that you need renewable energy, and that is half the battle. And we can quite often offer advice on technical aspects that they may not have the resources for. And then at the end, you want to reflect on what you've learned and evaluate, and that means adapting your scheme to suit the feedback of what you've received from other people, local people. Could we have the next slide, please? I'll say a very quick word about stakeholder mapping, because it's really not nearly as scary as it sounds. I use a simple spreadsheet. I log all the contact details for these organisations, MPs, and there's probably other organisations that you can think of. It's really important to do it at the beginning of your project, so that you can really identify all the groups that you want to engage with. Next slide, please. Lots of different activities you can do to get people involved. I love a mail shot, but it's expensive unless you've got an army of volunteers who are going to hand deliver it for you. And it's not perfect. Some people sign up to not get any junk mail. Some people don't bother to open it if it looks like junk mail, and it usually does. So one way around that is to send a postcard rather than a letter in an envelope, because then they can instantly see what you're contacting them about. This is me at the Wiltshire Bee and Honey Day. We identified beekeepers as a really positive audience to engage with about solar farms, because as everybody probably in this room knows, solar farms are like wildlife reserves, and they're great resources for people who keep bees. And my client has sponsored that event 4 years in a row, and it's gone really well and get very positive feedback. Next slide, please. So I'll end with a few sort of more philosophical thoughts about community engagement. First thing, is really important to listen and let people speak, and you may not always agree with them, but you have to let them share their views.
if it's really obvious that you're on totally opposite ends of the spectrum and there are still a few climate change deniers around, there's no point trying to change their minds, so listen and then move on. And what you really want to focus on is encouraging the silent majority to speak up. We heard again this morning that something like 80% of people really care about this, but so many of them just don't bother to get involved. And it's very easy to say and very difficult to do, but try and focus on getting those people involved with your projects. And then remember, if you're building a renewable energy project in the community, it's going to be there for the long term. So your relationship with the local community doesn't end when you get planning permission. It doesn't end when you've built the project. It's a long-term, 40-year relationship if it's a solar farm. And you want to make sure that you're bringing people with you at every stage of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. That was really good. And we've got a slido question about engaging communities. If you could go on to that question, if you haven't answered it already, we'll try and come back to it at the end in terms of your answers if we've got time. We're now going to move on to Neil Best from the Centre for Sustainable Energy, who's going to talk about engaging, future energy landscapes and engaging communities now.
Thank you, Nick. Hello, everybody. Go on to the next slide. Yeah, I'm Neil Best from the Centre for Sustainable Energy, CSE. I'm in the communities team there. We also have a stall downstairs. Come and chat to me later. CSE is a charity. We're based in Bristol. We work nationally. Basically, we try and bring people together, trying to transform the energy system, tackling the climate emergency, and fuel poverty is like a dual challenge. Next slide, please. I won't dwell on this, but basically our approach to trying to tackle that emergency is to think about the challenge more like a piece of jazz music than a piece of Mozart. The temptation is to want the perfect plan and everybody to know what to do at the right time. It's not like that. We're all members of a jazz band. We're all going to do our individual things, working to the same sort of objectives. But the key thing is, jazz only works when people listen to one another, listen to what others are playing, and then responding and building on each other's contribution. If you don't do that, the music will sound terrible. It won't be worth it. It really plays on. I don't know if Jen was in the room, but everything she was saying earlier, I was nodding my head furiously to it, and that ripple effect, absolutely 100% agree with that. It's like this. So, next slide, please. I'm going to get a bit less abstract as we go along. So, public involvement and consent is mega important to this, right? So it's the bedrock upon which the success or failure of any policy or programme will be determined. Those are the words of our former CEO, Simon Roberts, who's now retired. But that's it's so important. If you don't have public involvement or build up social consent for something to happen, like a solar farm or wind turbine, it's going to be much more difficult to actually implement. Next one, please. So, this is a table it's called something called the Spectrum of Participation. You can Google it, there's lots of versions online. We didn't create it, but it very much sums up how we at CSE try to approach all of our different projects. Basically, on the left-hand side of this table, it's things that are less participative, and on the right-hand side, more. A lot of engagement traditionally happens in these sort of columns, so the information giving, trying to consult people, doing newsletters, holding public meetings in a village hall, showing people what you want to do. They all have a time and a place. Well, we try wherever we can to try to move up to this side of the table, which is more collaborative, working with communities, organisations, trying to do sort of co-designed, co-delivered work where you can get real buy-in, and that's the goal, and that's where we should all try and aim to be. Next one, please. So, community energy is a brilliant example of where I think we can do this and do this really well. Sarah and others have already given an overview of what community energy is, so if we can go on to the next one. Why? Because we can, through the things that Sarah others have said around the benefits that we can create through community energy. We can really bring people, communities together, drive local action and turn that effort into lasting impact. And it can, as we've just heard, deliver significant environmental, economic and social value to a community. And that's where we can get the buy-in and support if you can do it well. So next one please. So the real focus of what I want to talk about, or just at least raise awareness of, at CSE we run lots of different projects. Some of them are really focused on community energy. Here's two of them. One of them is called our Future Energy Landscapes Programme. The links are on the bottom, give it a Google, you can find out. Future Energy Landscapes, or FEL, is our sort of community engagement approach to looking at renewable energy, community energy projects. We do go in really early. So we do try to go in as early as possible. And it's all about trying to work with communities to start a conversation in the local area to see what the opportunities might be for renewable energy generation in their area, and crucially, how they might want to benefit from it. And they can, through a deliberative engagement sort of process, tell us, so all the content comes from them, about how they feel about their area, how they might want to benefit, and hopefully identify some areas which might be feasible for community energy projects. So, FEL, and I'll come on to a process we're doing in Wiltshire in just a second. I just wanted to highlight something else, which is the Early Energy Learning Network, which we're a part of, which is being run by Ashton. And that project has got lots of practical advice and support for organisations doing community energy. So just wanted to highlight that one. Look up community energy on the CSE website. Next slide, please. So, with my remaining time, I just wanted to highlight that we are, through the next kind of year or so, going to be partnering up with a bunch of really brilliant organisations, so including the Council, Empowered, Zero North Wilts, Bath and West, and Nadder Community Energy in Wiltshire. And we're going to be running some of those future energy landscape workshops. So, next one, this is the last one. The second to last one, sorry. So these are the areas that we think we're going to be working in. Corsham is confirmed. The others, so Tisbury, Pewsey, Westbury, sort of the Bradford-on-Avon, and Trowbridge, Hilberton, Staverton sort of areas, are where we are hoping to run workshops and work with communities. So if any of you live or work or know people who live and work in those areas, we would love you to signpost or sign up to be part of those workshops. And the next one, which is the last one, we have QR codes here or downstairs on the table if you want to sign up. So the Corsham event is going to happen on the 3rd of July. You can sign up to it and take part. The other ones, if you would like to register your interest and leave your details with us, we will contact you when those are arranged. We would love to see you there, and we'll be working with people like Sarah to deliver that. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Neil. And you'll be around all day. Good contact, great. There's another question on Slido for you, which is about what kind of projects you would like to see in your area, nature or climate type projects, so we can get a sense of what people are looking for, what groups are looking for. So if you could answer that, we'll come back to it. We're now going to move on to Alan Maryon-Davis talking about Nadder Community Energy's experience and a little bit about Energy Locals.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Craig. Yes, I've been asked to just give a couple of case studies, living examples, as it were, of little projects where there's been a need for some community engagement, try to get people involved in what we're doing. So I'll quickly whisk through those. Nadder Community Energy is based in the Nadder Valley, which is there. It's nestled between the A303 and the A30, and it sort of centres on Tisbury, which is where we're based. Next one, please. So very quickly, we're a very, very small community energy organisation and society, and I won't go through that. Sarah's again described all that sort of thing, just to say that sorry, keep it there. We've got just under 600 kilowatts of solar generation on 16 sites, and pretty well all rooftop sites. on schools, farms and commercial buildings in and around the Nadder Valley. We have one ground-mounted unit, a very small unit on a chicken farm, which I'll come on to a bit later on. Next slide, please. We've been going since 2015. We built up a small community benefit fund, and we've expended a lot of that on these sorts of initiatives. Rather special one there, the Chisbury's famous open-air swimming pool. If you haven't tried that yet, it's wonderful. It's warm, and it's going to be very warm today because the solar panels are doing a good job of heating that. Various other feasibility studies, etc. There, we have a domestic energy efficiency advisory service called Warmer at Home, which is building up nicely, and etc. And an Chisbury's electric car club. Next slide, please. Just very quickly on that. National lottery money, which was very helpful at the beginning in 2019, but it was based on the community survey. People, we asked them whether or not they would like to have a car sharing club, and which would be an electric car sharing club, particularly so very green, and if so, how might they use it, how often, whether they already own a car, whether they don't, etc. Lots of useful questions which helped us build up a case for having a car share club, and we got some money for that, and developed that. It's going very nicely. We set up 2 charge points in the village, Chisbury, which is a village of about 2,500 people, and of course it's only best if it's used locally by local people who are very close to the charge point, because there's no point in driving in to then hire an electric car. And then we bought the 2 second-hand electric cars, and all going very well. We did a lot of local media blitzing through the usual channels. Next slide, please. And unfortunately, COVID came on. Disaster there. We basically had to put the whole thing on hold and on sort of mothball it for about a year, more than that. And eventually we got it going. And we built up membership to about 96, nearly 100 people, which is really good. And it was being well used. But then another disaster, the insurance bombshell. I don't know if you're aware of that, but the car share clubs around the country couldn't get insurance. They just couldn't, nobody would insure them. Suddenly a big change in policy in the insurance industry, and all car share clubs were really struggling to get that insurance. So that put us out of action for about a year. And eventually got an answer to that by joining up with an outfit called Hirecar, and there are a lot of these new companies around the insurance companies around the country that work on an individual insurance basis. Each driver is individually insured. So the cars are insured separately, but each driver who wants to hire has to get personalised, tailor-made insurance, and that can be done quite quickly, in about 10 or 15 minutes. And so we got that going again in February. And the other interesting thing is we've got a grant from SSEN for a mobile battery. This is working with the parish council because there was talk of setting up a resilience hub in case of power cuts. And the idea was to get a mobile battery which could keep the lights on and the computers going and the dialysis machine going. But we then realised we could actually use that money to buy an electric car, which would be 70, much bigger, 10 times the amount of power than the mobile battery. So we've got that, and we've now bought a car which can be used as a power source. It's vehicle to load, I think it's called, and that's great. So that's exciting. Next slide, please. We'll move on to the quick word about energy local Chisbury. This is based on our ground-mounted unit, which is a chicken farm, which is relatively small, just 2 rows of panels. But what we want to do is expand it up to 250 kilowatts. It's very poor agricultural land, it's a chicken farm, it's just scrub ready, and it's tucked away nicely so it can't be seen by many dog walkers, so it's fairly hidden away. And we've got that all through. We got some funding from the Community Energy Fund to do a feasibility study, and we sort of just finished that first phase, and we've been awarded some money for the second phase. And a lot of that spends very much on engaging the community, because you can imagine, we don't use the word solar farm, wash your knife up with soap. We say extension of our existing ground-mounted unit. So, anyway, so there's a lot of that community engagement underway. And let's have the next slide, please, quickly. Yes, there we are. So, much use of local media through the community newsletter or the parish magazine, really. Lots of articles. Using social media a lot. Local podcasts. These things, you know, we've talked about this already. Stands at local events. 2 community meetings so far. There'll be more to come. The Q&A sessions and lots of flyers and posters. We haven't done individual leaflet drops through letterboxes yet. We did that for the car club. The dangers of that are that you get your hand caught in that brush thing. We've done an electronic survey, which is we're getting a lot of useful feedback from that. And we've also met up with the immediate neighbours, the people who live near the chicken farm, because we're worried that they might object. But actually, they've been quite very good about it. And they realise the benefits for the chickens, because the chickens love the shade. You know, it keeps them cool, a bit like today. Perfect. Next slide, please. So we've got very high levels of support for the whole idea. A lot of interest in possibly joining the Energy Local Club, which I've now got no time to explain what that is if you don't know, but maybe in the discussion. But it's basically a local market where you get cheaper electricity. Obviously get the electricity from the solar panels, but even in the winter when the sun ain't shining, you could still get cheaper electricity because it doesn't involve the transmission part of the national grid. It's just the distribution level. It's cheaper, and you can have time use tariffs and stuff like that. Right, don't know what that says. Next slide, please. And here are a few comments, which I haven't got time to read, but there they are. Basically, people were a bit concerned about the land use element. Thought that some people might miss out. And the last one there, his only concern is that you're just outside the Tisbury substation area. It's all got to be within the same substation area. Just outside. So fear of missing out. FOMO. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan, for getting through all that. Amazing to hear all the things that are going on in Nadder. Our last presentation is from Dr. Alex Rowbotham from Wiltshire Council, who's going to make that link to EV as well.
Great, thanks, Nick. Right, this is a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah, I'm the EV infrastructure strategy lead. I've been working in Wilts Council for just over a year now. We've managed to get a team together of officer conduits. And we're working on a project to roll out a lot of public EV charging across Wiltshire. Yeah, if you see anybody with these badges on there in my team, you can ask them about EVs. Next slide, please. I'm not really going to talk about community engagement because you've got some real experts here talking about that. What I thought I would share is some observations about EV charging that I think might be helpful if you are doing a community energy project. The first one being something that gets said a lot in the EV sector. It's like a little bit of wisdom. Is that right charger, right place, and there's a lot wrapped up in that. It's worth considering. So there's a range of technology available for EV chargers, but don't think that one of them's a silver bullet or they're all better than each other or the bigger numbers are always better. You need to choose the right technology out of those, so really consider what's going on. And what is going on? Well, it's about the place that it's being installed, the context. So have a good grasp of the geography and all the things that are involved in that aspect, particularly the electric distribution network, but also the local community around there, who's in support of it, who isn't, and who are going to be the customers, and is it applicable for the kind of customers that you want to pull in. Next slide, please. The other thing was around energy storage systems, and a lot of talk about renewable energies is usually around putting the solar power in, putting renewable energy sources in, but there is a big problem attached to that of you know, where's that energy actually going? Are you just playing to put it back into the grid? What we really like is for it to be used by that local community. And this is where the energy storage systems really come in, and they're becoming more and more prevalent. And one of the reasons for that is, and this is a bit of a kind of educator for the Daily Telegraph reading EV haters, there's going to be a lot of batteries available. The electric vehicles that are on the roads now, the vehicle is going to be finished before the battery. So that battery is going to be wanting a second life. And as an example, we've already got a company in the UK, Connected Energy. That's what they do. They go around and look for these second life batteries. This is one of their units. It has 24 EV batteries in it. And that's what they are offering to the market, to act as a battery energy system. So yeah, consider the role of batteries, and that they will be getting cheaper. Yeah, excellent. Next slide, please. Oh, very brief. Just want to sell the other presentation that I'm doing at 1:40. So if you want to know more about electric vehicle infrastructure and what we're planning on doing in Wiltshire, then we'll be in the Pritchett room at 1:40 talking about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Alex. I think if we look at the results, we'll spend a bit too much time. So if you want to look at on your own phones or laptops, you can look at the results of those surveys that we did, and we're going to take note of that information that you provided to us. I think we'll go straight to our panel now, so you can start asking some questions. So if the speakers could come and just sit over here, please, and we'll start asking your questions. Who wants to kick off? I'll pass you the microphone. So. Yeah. So we can hear you.
Hello, sorry, I don't know if I missed it because I missed the first 10 minutes, but I haven't had any talk of river-powered community energy projects. Do such things exist? Thanks to power on the mills around here.
Good question. Who wants to take that?
Do you have one?
Yes. Could you pass the other microphone over to Sarah?
Thank you. Yes. On the bottom. Thank you. Yes, we have a small water wheel at the Old Mill Hotel. We have done, working with Bath and North East Somerset Council, they have done a survey of where the potential is on the local rivers. The River Avon has a couple of good sites in Bath. Otherwise, they're quite small ones. They tend, in Wales, places like that where there's quite steep hills, where the water flows out down really fast, there's more energy potential in those. So you see a lot of microhydro schemes that have a really good business case in places like that. Not to say you shouldn't try to do a feasibility study if you've got a water mill. There are really some really good examples. I don't know if anyone else has any kind of good examples locally.
Yeah, it's not in Wiltshire, but the Low Carbon Hub in Oxford has a community hydro scheme.
One in Reading as well.
Thank you very much. A question from John here.
Hello, thank you for all the presentations. Just one observation is community engagement and when it happens and how it happens. So some of that seems to be that projects are identified, then you're engaging with the community to get them on board or do it. In a previous setting, I've been involved with days and days of workshops with communities so they design their own. So the project comes very much from the bottom up. So if you've got a project, I don't know, a chicken farm or something like that, then you're like, this is what we want to do and how we want to do it. If you want to go down and say, actually, what we'd like to do is solarize this part of our community, or we would like to have some other form of environmental intervention at that point. And that would definitely come from the bottom up, but to do that you need workshops and interaction and facilitation and everything like that. Then you get real community buy-in. And I think fundamentally what we could be looking for is the crowding in effect. So if X gets solar panels on their roof, or they do that, then Y will do it because there's the social norm, the social pressure. Then Z, X, because what you're creating is a social need that says this is justifiable and everything like that. But to do that, you have to create the space, and then you're going to have those difficult conversations. So I'm interested about when you would engage when you feel it's better to engage, and whether the projects are coming to you or whether you're really finding the projects and taking those to the community.
Do you want to kick off with that, Sophie?
Yeah, I'll say a brief bit about this, but Neil's probably got quite a lot to say about it. Yes, if you've got a particular site in mind for, say, a solar farm, then it's great to get the community involved at an early stage in the design, and there's something called an inquiry by design that you can use, which is just now starting to be used in the commercial sector, and is obviously very, very valid for the community sector as well, where it's exactly as you described. You have 2 days of workshops, you explain the site constraints and so on, but you still need to have an idea of whether a project is going to be viable before you do that. That means you have to have a grid connection, you have to have done some ecological studies and the sorts of things that might prevent a project from going ahead. And then I'll pass this to.
Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, I think both approaches are equally valid for different reasons. Like, I guess what you're describing is very much what we're trying to explore in the Future Energy Landscapes project, trying to identify projects from the bottom up which may or may not ultimately be viable, but it's generating ideas from the community that ultimately an organisation like Bath and West or Nadder could ultimately go on to deliver, or new community energy groups emerge, and that's what we're looking for. There's equally, some of the other projects, there's commercial sensitivities to them, which means you can't reveal too early. So I think both are valid approaches, but the one that we're trying to explore is probably a little bit more unconventional, but can hopefully, build up more community support in doing so, and identifying those community benefits that will do it. So.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next question from Mel.
Hi. I've seen a lot of things on Facebook where Germany are growing food underneath solar farms, great all rooftop stuff, but actually getting the community on board and be able to grow things underneath, and maybe even allow them to have allotments underneath or grow their own food underneath, I think would really get the community involved. And also places where they have sheep underneath them. I mean, you've heard about the chickens, but I just wondered if anybody was thinking of growing things underneath them, apart from the wildlife, and any sheep growing.
So sheep grazing is pretty standard now across most large solar farms in the UK. I live next to High Pen Solar Farm in Cairn. We don't have sheep on it all year round, but most large developments do encourage sheep grazing. There's been some work done at Cirencester Agricultural College looking at the possibility of growing crops under solar panels. And as you say, there's other places in Europe where it works. I think what we tend to find, the results of the early projects are that you lose a bit of productivity and energy, and you use a bit of productivity on the crop. But it's definitely something a road we want to be going down. But I think the important thing is to remember that most ground mount solar farms are not on the best quality, most productive agricultural land, and that by providing a stable income for the farmer, it actually enables them to produce more food on the rest of their land.
Thank you, Sophie. A really good question. Alice, do you want to comment on that?
I'll sort of asked to be a bit on the panel on technical things. So agrivoltaics is what you're talking about. It is being used in Germany to some extent. There's some reports been released over there in the last 10 years. I would say it's really at the sort of very early stage. Sophie's right, some circumstances won't work because of the quality of the land we tend to use for solar farms. But it feels to me personally, we develop a lot of community energy projects, Bath and West Community Energy in Zero North Wiltshire, which is what I'm involved in. And it feels to me community would be a good place to try and do these things because we can access certain funding to try and experiment with things like that. But there are economies of scale you need to make solar work. There's a boring reality of economics. And what we'd hope to find, if we found the right land that was productive enough for the right crop, I mean, that's the big thing. There's lots of different diverse types of crops that you can grow, from strawberries to wheat that people have tried in Germany. And there's no one size fits all. So it is quite a complex solution, but it is something that I know for certain BBC would be open to looking at it. As in North Wiltshire, in time we may look at it as well. So there's projects that people are thinking of, but they've got a piece of land and they'll be interested in that. There's a lot of other factors like finding a grid to connect to and things like that, but it is quite an interesting area that might evolve over the next sort of 5-10 years.
Thank you, Alice, that's really helpful. We've got time for just 2 more quick questions, and then I know Paul wants to say a few words, so we'll overrun ever so slightly. So I've got Ross first.
Thank you, Nick. I'm Ros Savage, MP for the South Cotswolds, and I'm very keen to promote community energy within my constituency, and also to use my position in Westminster to ask the government to make the general legal environment more friendly towards community energy. So what would your asks be of government to create a better legal environment for projects like yours?
So do you want to take that one? I know it's a difficult one.
I'll just have one. I've got one very quick one, which is make community ownership a material planning consideration or planning applications.
Thanks. I think some of these things are in the consideration already, but having development funding. So the thing that community energy often lacks is the deep pockets of venture capitalists or the like who fund the larger scale commercial schemes. So to do a smaller scale scheme often requires that development funding. Obviously there has been some of that, but more would be very welcome. I think the government is already looking at that, so that is great. We're also unlocking local supply. So as you heard from the Nadder experience, clubs like Energy Local that enable the power to be sold directly to the local people. There's about to be a consultation on whether to actually make that. At the moment it's kind of going through a regulatory loophole, but there's a consultation on whether to make that actually a formal way that energy can be sold to local people. Making sure we get the right outcome from that consultation would be great in terms of enabling us to do that, because then it's that, you know, you see these things in the newspaper, don't you, where there's a guy whose house ends up being right next to this massive solar farm and he still can't get any of the power, but he's got all the impact. And, you know, all the communities, the seashore communities that see a massive wind turbine just off the coast there, but they can't, their bills are through the roof. So it's sort of solving that, and we've got the opportunity for that through this consultation. So those would be some important things. Shared ownership, obviously the schemes such as Forest Gate. You know, is there something about commercial schemes needing to have an element of shared ownership in them? So that the community is getting more of the benefit than they naturally would from a commercial scheme. You know, that's something else that we want to look at. Alex, anything to add?
Route to market. So long-term price security for generation, that's really important. A route to market, so that's long-term price security. At the moment, above 5 megawatts, you get a contract for a different subsidy. Below 5 megawatts, there isn't anything. So we have to look at quite creative solutions like Energy Local, which is still in a sort of early stage at the moment, but there is some degree of risk because it tends to be on short-term contracts. And if you're going to invest £2, £3, £4, £5 million in a project, it's helpful to have a long-term price thing. So a contract for difference would be over 15 years. It'd be quite nice to find a mechanism that was similar to that, or something like that, that would give these really important schemes that we're creating here that reinvest all their value locally a bit more stability, because it is the future. It's the fairest way to have energy is through community energy.
Brilliant. I think we're going to go over slightly because it is lunchtime. If people are okay with that, and take another question, and then we'll just say something. So,
thanks very much, Jeremy White from Great Green Bedouin. Apologies if I missed this. Was there a discussion of the benefits of siting a community energy project where there's a large daytime energy usage, such as a sewage treatment plant or an industrial site, which obviously increases the value of the energy being generated and avoids having to export it at the wholesale rate?
Short answer, yes. That's absolutely brilliant. To have a large energy user that you can directly sell the power to, it just makes the whole thing viable. So I don't know if anyone's got more to add, but yes, that's key. Certainly, I mean, this is often the thing with community energy, community buildings. We often get asked, oh, can we do village halls? But if they're only used sort of during the evening in the winter time, mostly, then that's just, they're not going to be using that solar power at the right time, although there are sometimes grants that can bridge the gap. So, but yeah, certainly if there's a really high energy demand, that's absolutely these private schemes. So I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that, but
Any further comments? No? Alex?
Wiltshire Council could buy a lot of power from community energy. That would be a very good power pool to be able to sell our energy to somebody like that.
I didn't want to say. Thank you very much. So that's just about all, unless there's a burning question and it's quick. Very
Right.
quickly.
It's
yeah.
not a question, it's a comment,
Yeah.
which was, as at yesterday, on a website called Phys.org, that's phys as in physician or physicality. There's an article about a scheme called Biomatch, where they filter out the sunlight or the light from a solar array to give the plants underneath each what they particularly like or thrive on. And their tomatoes are doing better, but the rest of the incoming light is used for the energy generation. And it seems to be a win-win,
Very
although
interesting.
it's still experimental.
Yeah.
The
Thank
site is phys.org.
Thank you for that. Brilliant. So thank you very much for all your questions. We're just going to have a few words now from Cllr Paul Sample, JP, who is the Cabinet Member for Environment, Climate and Waste.
What a wonderful hour we've spent talking about this subject. I just want to do a little bit of audience participation. The first thing is, who is already doing this? Could you put up your hands so that we can see those of you who are already doing it? Okay, as high as we can see.
Doing what, sorry?
Doing what? Yes.
Doing community energy, all right?
Yes.
That's specific enough. Right, brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. So, I completely support what you're doing. I spent, my wife spent our honeymoon with me at the Centre for Alternative Technology in 1985, 40 years ago, and I loved it. I loved every minute that I spent there. I went round, I saw everything from compost toilets to early solar arrays, lots of hydro power, of course, because it's McKinleth and you've got lots of river falls, and wind power, all right? And 30 days ago, I became, quite unexpectedly, the Cabinet Member with responsibility for climate change. I am so happy. So happy. And I know that we can do it. Yeah? We can have more solar panels on Wiltshire Council buildings. We can have more solar panels on our buildings. We can have them in the property which we own, in the land that we own. The issue I would say to Ros to take away is to go back to Westminster and get the Labour government to give us permission to put solar panel and wind power on Salisbury Plain. That's the biggest single provider of land. We have got to have the conversation with them about all of the land that they own and where it's suitable to put solar panel and hydro panel. That's what I would say. That's my takeaway. What I want to do is I want to see those people who want to go back to their communities, in the words of one politician, and prepare to do this. Put up your hands if you want to do this and you're not at the moment. Put them up so that we can see you. Please come over here in the corner after this and sign up. Just give us your details and we can start the conversation with you as Wiltshire Council. Can you do that? Yeah? Because we will not achieve this on our own. We have to have, there are some great examples of where it's happening in Tisbury, up in Chippenham, in Bradford, some wonderful examples of where it's happening, but we have to have this happening in every area in the county. And if we're to hit the objectives which we've got to reduce the impact on Wiltshire climate change, we all have to be part of that change, okay? So those people who want to do it, put up your hands again, come over and see me in the offices. before you go to lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you for finishing on that really inspiring note. Could we all exit that way? Enjoy your lunch.